Why being a good shopper can actually be hurting your bottom line. My name is Brie Sodano. I'm a personal finance expert, and I created sharkschool.online. It's an online program full of all the financial education you could ever want in terms of strategy, habits, and mindset. So today what we're going to be talking about is how sometimes being a good shopper can actually be hurting your bottom line. There's three main reasons why this happens. The first is, the more you shop, the more you spend. Retailers have spent decades and billions of dollars making shopping psychologically addictive and doing their very best to squeeze every single dollar out of you that they can in every single shopping trip. And so there's three main ways that this happens. So the first is impulse purchases. So for example, you've probably never gone to the grocery store with the intention of buying a candy bar, but while you're waiting in line, they have all those little treats and you may get one just because it's an impulse. You may just make an impulse purchase, right? So impulse purchases is a way where you get out of your own true desires and into your subconscious impulses. This is a big cost. And every time you go to the store, you expose yourself to that opportunity to make impulse purchases. Now, the second thing is what I call the manipulation of desires. There are some things that you want because you truly want them. You either need them, you actually really want them. But when we get into the store, we can find things that I could use. And it's not, we didn't go there with the intention. Our lives are fine without them, but we see it and we could find a purpose for it. And so then we want it. I'll give you a quick example. So I had a client who, this is a silly purchase and this wasn't going to damage all of her financials. So she was in Target and she bought a storage organizing unit for all of her wrapping paper. Now, all of her wrapping paper was already put away in a closet. There was no wrapping paper problem, but she fell to this manipulation of desire, which is, oh, I could use this. And so then she bought this thing. And that's how this happens. It can be big or small. Now, the second thing is being a good shopper generally requires you need to know what everyone's selling. And I will tell you that advertisements create new desires. You're more likely to go into the store with a bigger list after you've read through all the circulars or after you've looked at all the advertisements, because the more you see that's available, that's going to feed your desires. The more you do shopping and researching, sometimes this can backfire for that exact reason. The third way shopping can hurt your bottom line is that making a lot of decisions requires your brain to use a lot of glucose. So if you've been watching me, you know that we have two different parts to our brain. Our conscious brain, which does all the thinking, all the decision making, and our subconscious brain, which does all of our emotions, our body movements, and other functions. So when you're making a lot of conscious decisions, decision making happens in the conscious mind. Now, the conscious mind is incredibly inefficient. It uses a massive amount of glucose to be able to make decisions. And a decision is a decision is a decision. That's why this happens to me. I will make big decisions all day at work. And when it's time to pick out what I want for dinner, I'm like, I don't know, you tell me. I don't know what kind of sandwich I want. This is how that really happens. So if you're doing a lot of shopping, especially a lot of price shopping where you're really comparing a lot of prices, you're making a lot of conscious decisions. Now this can lead to being exhausted, not physically exhausted, but mentally exhausted. And when you're exhausted, you're more likely to either, you may be a person who says no when you're out of decision making, or a person who's like, yeah, put it in the cart, we'll figure it out later. I call it like F it spending. Now this can be the case for even big decisions. And just so you know, in your brain, a small decision is the same as a big decision. So if you're picking out a refrigerator, it's not too much more difficult, or it doesn't consume more glucose than picking out toilet paper. When you use a lot of your decision-making power on small decisions, you don't have it for the big things that you need. Instead of being a good shopper, what I would suggest is being an efficient shopper. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is you want to systemize your household shopping. So your groceries, your toiletries, the things that you get on Amazon, you want to put those kind of in a system. And here's what I mean. So if you go to the grocery store, you want to figure out do I need to go once a week? Do I need to go every other week? People generally with kids probably need to go every single week. People who are older, kids are out of the house, may be able to get away with every other week. People who do a lot of traveling or eat out a lot may be able to get by, a little bit less often. But you want to kind of put put that in and systemize it. And here's why, is this gives you an idea when you're shopping of how much do I need to get through the next week or the next 2 weeks. And so this way you're not shopping for the rest of Affinity and beyond, you're just shopping for the next 7 days. So am I gonna need milk in the next 7 days? No, I got a whole gallon, I'll be fine. Putting a system in place gives you a concrete time frame. And so this way you can ask yourself, am I gonna need this in the next couple days? Now, systemizing your shopping also gets you out of the constantly grazing. The stores would love for you to be constantly shopping. If you could go to Target every single day, you'd be Target's favorite customer. Less is more. The less you shop, the more money you'll have. You also want to figure out what you truly want before you really do a lot of research. Like if you're buying something big like a new refrigerator, you want to start to think about, well, what features do I even want? What size do I need? You want to start to get clear about this before you really go looking, because you may find features available that are much more expensive that you actually don't really want or need. And this is, again, the manipulation of desires. So if you know what your desires are before you go shopping, you're going to be much more likely to stick to what it is that you actually want. So the third thing that you're going to want to do is shop with intention or a hard stop on spending. So let me give you an example. So if I was to look in my closet and say, oh, my black pants, they're getting a little ratty, I need new black pants. And I was to go to Marshall's with the intention of buying new black pants. That's shopping intentionally. I know what I need. I know what I'm looking for. I go and I get it. For some of us, we like to shop for the experience of browsing. We want to touch stuff. We want to go and see what it is that we want. If that's an experience that you truly enjoy, you do want to be careful with it and give yourself a hard stop on spending. So if you were going to Marshall's to browse, I don't think collecting crap that you don't actually want makes for a happier life, and I don't think it makes for your finances better. But there are some times where there's such a lovely experience in the shopping that there's some value there that needs to be accounted for. So if you're going to go for the browsing, give yourself a hard stop on spending, and you can go in and admire the things and know that they're lovely and not necessarily need to take them home. So if you're in that kind of boat where you like to browse and it makes you happy to browse, just know that there's a difference between what you're getting out of the experience of the browsing and what you're getting out of the owning of the thing. Sometimes we like the experience of buying more than we like the experience of owning a thing. And if you're in that camp, one thing that you can do is give yourself a day. This is a little harder in real life, but online, like you can put something in your cart, not a buy, but that experience before you actually pull the trigger on purchase. And so if you're in a situation where you really like something and you're going to the store to browse, you may want to commit to yourself either a hard cap on spending for that day, or you know what, this is lovely, and if I really want it, I'll come back tomorrow for it. Because most of the time, the thing that you're actually getting by browsing is the browsing in and of itself. It's not the buying. So you want to make sure that you have those two things. If you're someone who loves to browse, you want to separate those two things in your mind, because browsing usually leads to buying. And if you want the stuff and you need it, cool. But if you don't want it, then just do the browsing. All right, so those are my tips for today. I hope that was helpful. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out.